Okay, so I will open the city council work session for Tuesday, April 13th. We've got a couple topics, so I need approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now we're going. Public comment, I believe we have one. Rusty will get us connected to Jan.
Can you hear me?
We can, thank you, Jan.
Okay. I'm Jan Siebert-Warmond with the Cannon Beach Friends of the Trees, P.O. Box 778, Cannon Beach, Oregon 97110. Dear Cannon Beach City Councilors, first, we thank you and city staff for all you do for our Cannon Beach trees and for helping to keep Cannon Beach a designated Tree City USA community. As you may know, the Cannon Beach Friends of the Trees is a volunteer group dedicated to the growth, stewardship, and preservation of the trees of our community as a living legacy for present and future generations. As part of our Cannon Beach Tree Stewardship Plan, one of the main projects we'd like to see for our town is a Cannon Beach Heritage and Significant Trees program. We've spoken with a few of you individually about this program and also met with and received support from our Cannon Beach Development Director, Jeff Adams, the Cannon Beach Garden Club, the Cannon Beach Planning Commission, and most recently, the Cannon Beach Parks and Community Services Committee, which acts as our Cannon Beach Tree Board. It is our understanding that now, following the process suggested by the aforementioned people, it is time to give you all a brief Cannon Beach Friends of the Trees presentation about a possible Cannon Beach Heritage and Significant Trees program. Would you please be able to include us in your May 2021 meeting agenda? Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Have time on me or?
Certainly, we'll take a look at, Jan, hope you're still listening. We can definitely do May. I would want to take a look at the workshop, and if it's extremely busy, we may try to do it at the regular meeting where you would have more time to consider the items.
Okay.
Jan, is that acceptable?
Yep.
Okay, good. We should be able to tell
Thank
you
you.
tomorrow. We should be able to let you know
Okay.
tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah. Wow, we had a comment. That was fun. Okay, we've got topics that I think will probably kind of blend as we get into the discussion, but I'll let Bruce start with our.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here again to talk about our city hall and police department facilities. The conditions of the current city hall and police station have been well documented. I'm not going to talk about them unless you have some questions. If we are going to make the November 2nd ballot for a referral, we have exactly 4 months from today to get the materials related to the project to the Clatsop County Supervisor of Elections Office. That would seem to be an impossible feat if we did not have virtually all the information that is needed to make any decisions already on hand. And what we don't have, we can get for you in a relatively short time. Ultimately, council needs to answer the question for yourselves. Are you ready to commit to seeking a referral for the funding and construction of the City Hall Police Department project? What it takes to get you there is up to you. A decision about City Hall can be put off for a little bit of time, but it would be at a cost of approximately $750,000 in project cost escalation for every year of delay. And that would be paid by the people of this town. The same cannot be said for the conditions in the police station. Conditions there have deteriorated to the point that it's hard to continue to ask people to continue to work there. We have a second agenda item to talk about what will be needed, what will need to be done if we do not move forward with the new City Hall and police station. And just a reminder, if we do go to the November 2nd date for a referral, we will not be in the building for another 3 years. We can provide you with whatever information you need in a relatively short time. So staff is not afraid of meeting the requirements of a November 2nd, 2021 referral date. We're here to answer any questions that you might have. That's all I have for now, sir.
You want to get this started? Comments? I'll just jump in, I guess. I've said this quite often that I'm not comfortable for heading towards a referral. I need more clarity in the project. Specifically the location. We haven't hammered that out. The design needs to be more conceived. Doesn't need to be definitive, but it needs to be conceived, and a sense of commitment by us primarily, but also by some sense of the community. I think that's where I would feel comfortable with saying, okay, now it's time to go ask for money. At that point, that's kind of where I'm at. Problems with continuing with discussions to try and solve these problems. But I don't see that happening in 4 months just because of all the other stuff that we've got going on.
How I feel is that everyone here wants to see a new city hall and a police station. We all know that. However, the steps to attain this goal are in the wrong order. We should decide and agree to the location first, then find a plan that is fitting for the area that's being chosen, and then proceed with that. I certainly understand the need to do the police station and to get that remedied, even if it's a temporary fix. And I do like the idea of getting started on that right away. But this isn't a good time with the pandemic to really be doing this. I think a lot of people are struggling with finances. If you're a realtor, you're worried about the cost of lumber right now. It's up 185%. People that are doing projects where they were estimated for doors to be 6,000, it's now 10. Banks are having to go back and reevaluate what they've proposed to their clients. It's a very wobbly time. And I think we need to be strong and be a base for doing the right thing.
You know, It's not gonna get cheaper. It's already cost us an extra $500,000. Interest rates and inflation are starting to rear their ugly head. And we spent years and couldn't reach an agreement on location or even size. I know of no alternative financing except with a bond issue. I haven't heard any other suggestions, different approaches to that. And I understand making a commitment now, raise so many millions of dollars on bond issue without knowing detail of the building or where it's located is very difficult and very awkward. Looking at the location, we had an architectural engineering firm give us some representation of 2 of the feasible sites and none on the 3rd feasible site, and that's the Spruce Street site. And I'm uncomfortable making any decision on a site until that's been investigated without the emotion, but looking at it from a plus and minus approach like they did the others. And I think not to address that, we're negligent in refusing to look at the highest close-in piece of city-owned property. So where does that leave us? It leaves us right where we were 2 years ago. All agree we have a need and can't agree on size, 1-story, 2-story, where it's going to be. And the only new information we could gather at this time would be an update on costs. Probably could take a new look at the size, the requirements, because a few things have changed. It wouldn't change the square footage very much, if any. And the one site that is feasible, in my mind, we've not really investigated, still needs to be investigated with an architectural rendering, identifying that as another potential site, so we can then hopefully make a decision. I felt like where we were a year ago is right where we are now. No consensus by this council, no agreement on anything. And what's going to happen now by waiting another month, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months? We'll talk like this. What are we waiting for? Just the costs are going up and up. The need is going up and up. And we're sitting here with inability to say, here's a site that makes sense from an operating standpoint, a feasibility standpoint, emergency preparedness, and in my view, centrally located. Over a year ago, I made a motion to make a decision. And I was willing to make some changes. And in my opinion, just to get this thing moving. Didn't even get a second to the motion. So what do you expect to happen now? Somebody say something.
Well, I think we need to get moving on it. This is an issue that's been hanging over our heads for a long, long time. I mean, even before, well, I think it was one of the first stories I ever wrote for the Gazette when I first came here in 2007. And at that time, it was this building was falling apart then. And that was in 2007. So it needs to be resolved. And I don't know that waiting any longer is going to make the decision any easier. It's not going to be an easy decision about what we do, but we need to do something. And we definitely need to do something about the police department. If we don't do anything about the city hall, we definitely have to do something about the police department. But the city hall is in almost pathetic condition. And we really have to move on this. I think if we get some plans together, we do need a location. That's the first thing. And if we get plans together and we get it shovel ready, possibly we could even get some federal help if the infrastructure plan goes through. That's a long shot, but we need to be ready and ready to go and ready to do something. We just can't wait any longer to get this off the ground. I'm not sure about the November election, maybe May, so that it gives us a little more time to work with the public. But I definitely want to get the public involved. And we're starting to get into our busy season. So the public may not be able to get as involved as it could be, but still I want to get that portion of the project going. But we really need to think about location first. And I would like to look at the First Street. You call it the First Street?
Spruce Street.
Spruce Street location, not necessarily because I'm an advocate of it, but I'd like to see some renderings of what could be put there and still not disturb the forest, because I think it could be done, but I would like to see it. I have some major concerns about it, but it's one area that we haven't explored. So I really think we need to do that. And I think what's the estimate, $8,000?
It was, you're talking about to do a rendering? We had a price, it was between $8,000 and $10,000. This is from SRG to come in with their arborist and whatever arborist the city wanted to work with, to go through, look at the condition of all the trees, to decide on a building, proposed or a possible building site, and then to do a rendering of what it would look like to put a facility there. So that's, we would be able to, I think, if you wanted to go that direction, we could have, again, all the trees would be assessed and everything would be worked around whatever we come up with.
Yeah, I still have some pretty major concerns about that site, but none of the sites that we've looked at are perfect. So we need to look at them again, maybe get the committee that we formed involved again. But we really need to get going on this. We just can't have this hanging over our heads all the time. And it's, we don't know when the next major disaster is going to happen. And we don't want to be responsible for death and injury in this building. And if we don't have the facilities to work after the disaster with the citizenry, we may lose the town altogether. So we really need to get this going just for our own sake.
Right. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I'll just backtrack to where my support was at the last, we left this off. I fully support building a brand new police station on its current location and would be willing to move forward on that immediately.
Okay. I was going to go back to where Nancy was talking about waiting. I'm not advocating waiting. I agree that we need to constantly be working on this as long as we can. But I do think you have to have certain ducks in a row before you can move on. And asking for a referendum, you need certain things clear. And I agree that the location some semblance of something to show folks. I can tell you right now, if we went for a referendum now, obviously nothing's going to happen. Nobody's going to say what. So could we get that lined up by November? I strongly doubt that. Next year, after some of the current issues are at least alleviated a little bit, hopefully, the pandemic is fitted away by then. The discussion's still there, and maybe we can hammer out some of these details. I know everybody understands that My sense on the Spruce Street site is an absolute no-go. I call it a reserve for a reason. It's a reserve. We've declared it that, that's it. Saying that, wait, okay. We're fascinated to see what the architects come up with, knowing that there's no way they're going to be able to have the creative sense to do that environmentally. I just know it's not in their structure. I have seen plans. I know there's some of them upstairs in the attic where PSU proposed something many years ago that could have been probably established up there. That was for an educational type thing.
Foundations are still there.
No, that was something totally different. That was going to be a greenhouse. That was the garden club that was going to establish that. What PSU was promoting was totally on stilts. And absolutely not disturbing any roots at all. That was their plan with boardwalks and all that kind of stuff. That's something in the past. But again, to me, we bought the Southland project property. Even before we bought the Southland property, we were looking at that space for City Hall. We have drawings for that somewhere in the attic too. Not that I would go with those because that wasn't a very clever design, but so I still think we need to hammer this stuff out. We have several opinions and we have a blue ribbon committee that agreed on some stuff. Perhaps we could ask them a couple more questions. I have no problem doing that. But I also love to see it go more to the community, see if we can get some sort of survey type feedback or something else. I don't know, some way to get communication going. That's where I'm at with that. Now, going kind of going to where Brandon was to the next topic, which would be, could we do something here to really reinforce what the police facility needs? I think so. Bruce, go ahead.
If I can just address, some of the comments that were made. First of all, the scheduling and talking about November for the referral, that is based on the meeting that you had with the fire district, and they wanted to do the referral in November. And then also it's the next date. We can set it to whatever referral date you would prefer. But those are the two things that drive the discussion and saying, we're 4 months away from meeting that date. Sam, you talked about more clarity in the design, and Robin talked about the order of the events and when we would have information. If for us to get what it's going to look like, then I think we need to go to the next step of hiring an architect engineering group to study the information that's been developed, and then look at a particular site when we get to the point where we're talking about sites, and then say, okay, this is our schematic design. This is what it's going to look like when you're done. We just have some more things to do. If you have a group or somebody come in and just do a design without spending a tremendous amount of time on the program, getting to know the departments and all those kind of things, I would not say that's going to be successful, nor would I think that an architectural firm would come in, look at the same information and say, yes, that's going to be the design. We are willing to go ahead and build on that. So I think you need, if you want to have that, and I can understand it, you're talking about a significant investment, but you'll have an awful lot of good information. But I think you're well over to get to through schematic design. I would say you're probably in the neighborhood of $100,000. If you have something just put together to say, okay, this will be a floor plan, I've never seen a situation where that became the floor plan. Once you bring somebody on and they look at all the data, they're going to find a different reason or a different way to go ahead and do it, probably better. So I don't know if that's what is the issue is, then I would say that that's it. The information that we have no design yet. We have a program. And usually that's good enough to move forward with a facility, especially when you don't have a site to which you have formulated design around. One of the things that Nancy brought up, you know, as far as the condition of this building, and if we had a seismic event or something like that, the first part of what you said, and this is going to sound terrible, but that is not what concerns us as staff. It may happen. It's more likely to happen when we're not here, because we're not here more than we are here. But we're critically concerned that once this place, you know, all the computers are buried and all those kind of things, we'll be operating out of cars. And people will be hurt and people will need things, and we won't be able to collect data. One of the things that the community development department does is just go ahead and collect information from everybody that's out in the field and say, this house is gone, this, all that kind of stuff. So anybody making decisions can go ahead and look at that information. If you don't have that, then it's just, you know, what Mike told me and what Nancy said or whatever, and we have no verification of any of the conditions. So we'll be operating with our hands tied behind our backs. That concerns us. And from the site standpoint, I know people don't like to hear this, but you are the board of directors of a $29 million a year company, a business. And if we were to evaluate sites based on, you know, what's good for the city now, what's good for the city later, I would say that if somebody said, where's the project now? I would say that we are leaning towards the RV park, because this site just puts us right back in the tsunami zone. The south wind is double the cost. So kind of by default, you end up at the RV park. But the RV park, we've already calculated, is that for us to take the room that it would take to build a facility there, it would cost, we would lose $200,000 a year in revenue. So from a business standpoint, every 5 years, we would have to replace $5 million or $1 million. So from a business standpoint, it's like, that's the only site we have that costs us money. And, but that's kind of the default site based on, you know, what we're looking at and what we've got. So I totally endorse looking at the, you know, taking a good hard look at sites. But I don't think that we considered that when that became the default site. So I am totally on board with trying to go ahead and get more information for whatever you want. I don't have faith in just having somebody give us a design that's not going to carry the design through, which is why I would recommend we get a contract with somebody who'll do the whole project. We can cancel the project at any time, but then get a real look. Okay, that's what it's going to be. So those would be my recommendations. And also, again, we can go, if you want to schedule for May or however you want to do this, we can do that. But right now, focusing on what the fire department asked for and just trying to get it to the next thing.
Well, the fire department asked for the referral for the food and beverage tax, right? Or
Yes.
That's what you're referring to?
Yes. One of the funding opportunities we may have, again, you have one opportunity. And that is to go with the real estate tax, which every property owner would pay. And we calculated, I think it's about 5.5% on their total tax bill. They would see if we went for that, you have that opportunity. Beyond that, and I did some calculations on a half a $500,000 house, right? Property that's assessed at $500,000, that's about $325 a year.
So explain the real estate tax. Is that Are you talking about property taxes and increase
Yeah, a
in
bond.
property taxes?
Yes, if you were to do a
Okay, that's
regular bond issue.
increase in property tax.
Yeah, that's one way to go ahead and pay for it. We don't have another option, as far as I can see, other than a food and beverage tax. That's why we're focusing on the food and beverage tax. And I would not recommend that we go with one, especially since we're the sponsor. I would not recommend that we go with one for 2% or whatever, saying for the fire department, and then come back with another 2%. I think that we should, be looking out and say, okay, this is what the whole thing is going to be, and not us to be the tag along onto that. I don't, we have put in for the American Recovery Plan. And it would be great if we got that. What we're trying to accomplish to get out of the tsunami zone, to establish, strong resiliency in terms of emergency operations, those kind of things. It meets a lot of their criteria for that. And I'm hopeful, not necessarily optimistic, but hopeful that we would be able to do that. But it's going to be raise taxes, if it's going to happen, 5.5% on the total tax bill, or food and beverage. And I don't know of any other way to pay for this. So we have to kind of go with what we have available to us.
5.5% increase in property taxes. Are we allowed to do that? Does the state allow us to do that with all of the ballot measures we've had that limits property taxes?
Yes, because we would take it to a referral and the people would vote to tax themselves. That's an exception to what you're talking about, to making a change in the ballot.
I don't even know a house on the market right now that's 500,000.
Well, I understand. I'm just using the number.
Assessed at 500,000.
They're all above that now.
Yeah. I was just picking a point. It's 326 for that. If it's twice as much, it'd be $650 or something. But it's just to give an idea of what we think the numbers might look like for.
And we've had the school tax that's just come, and that's pretty horrendous.
Yeah, we would be about 15% of that. And I totally get what you're saying, Robin, but without it, and if we don't do food and beverage, then there's no reason to go ahead and consider doing a project. We don't have another way to get the money that I'm aware of.
Since you kind of introduced this, you want to go ahead and just jump into the next topic and we'll just blend these together? Because you've already kind of.
Yeah, yes, I would like to. Thank you. And what's happened is that the conditions in the police station, and I'm going to ask Jason to touch on those, but the conditions in the police station, you have a higher concentration of people that are in there. You have a 24-hour operation, and you also have a different construction in that most of the places we can see what's above us up here. Over the police station, it's very hard to get into that crawl space to be able to go ahead and really see all the things that are happening. So, and remember that this, used to be a place to store building materials. When they constructed, when the police station was built into a facility like that, it was built for whatever the staffing level was at the time. And even then, they put in 3 holding cells. We're down to 1. One is now holding evidence and the other one is storage. So, and we have more officers, we have more programs going on, and one toilet for 26 people, and male and female, no separation. Everybody has to change every day, and health issues that I think that Jason might be able to touch on. Those conditions, the conditions that we have over here, people do have some concerns that, they don't have trouble with breathing when they're at home or anyplace else, but they do have trouble when they come here. We've not spotted any mold, but we might be able to find, I don't know what it would take to find it. So those conditions are there. Most of the things that are happening here is just that if we have a small to medium event, this building probably would not survive. It was never meant to. It's built out of hollow block. And so our ability to respond to people, it would be, I don't even want to think about what it would be like with the desire that people would have to help and our inability to do so. Because we would be trying to just go ahead and fix things for ourselves, trying to establish communications, all those things that should already be in place. And even putting them into this structure wouldn't really help us a lot, because if that side of the building collapses, any antennas or whatever are gone. So we have, under Rick, we have built some amazing capabilities for resiliency, but we need to be able to manage things, to be able to go ahead and make those work. What we lose is our management center. So that's what the rest of the building, happens. And that, hopefully we'll all be able to run out the door if we feel it shaking or something. It's not who's going to get hurt or killed. It's what can we do to help the people that are going to rely on us. So Jason, would you kind of talk about what some of the conditions are?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. One point I'll start with, because this is my primary concern. I had 4 different things I want to talk about, but this is primary. This is an email that I received from one of my officers saying that they had been with Cannon Beach PD since, I won't give the date because I said I wouldn't name names, but in that time, they have noticed and witnessed conditions that make the police department unsuitable as a healthy workspace. I have the fortunate opportunity to spend most of my time in my patrol vehicle and away from the department. With that said, I do spend many hours in the department writing reports, investigating cases, and giving and receiving daily pass downs to and from my fellow officers. I have been diagnosed with seasonal asthma and have therapeutics when needed. I typically only need to treat for asthma symptoms during the peak of spring. But for the last 6 months, I have needed to treat my asthma symptoms throughout each week, and finding the symptoms tend to dissipate on my 2nd and 3rd day off. Though the symptoms are not severe, they are present and are certainly present when I spend numerous hours at one time in the police department. So it's unknown at this time if that's mold above or below, whether it's in the carpet, in the floors, or up in the ceiling, or in the exterior wall. 2 other emails from 2 different employees. One says I can work in my office for a couple hours before I get congested and have to go outside for fresh air, or use the apron I keep in my desk. And another said, I'd like to add that there is mold or something in the building that causes me chronic allergic reactions and feeling unwell. Also, the tiles in the ceiling are broken or ill-fitting in various places, exposing us directly to the rat refuse and attic dust above. One such tile is directly above the front office where both Laura and Val work. At least once a month, we have an overbearing odor that I think can only be described as something rotting or decaying in the building right when you walk into the lobby. It lasts about a week. We've had the pest control come out. More often than not, they can't find anything in the traps up above, and we don't know what the smell comes from. The carpeting in the police department is not hygienic or able to be sanitized. We often wear our boots into crime scenes, death investigations, structure fire investigations, all sorts of different things. And then we walk through the department. The bathroom floor is tile, which allows for who knows what to get through the cracks and fester below the tiles there. We've talked about replacing it, and that is one of the stopgap plans we've focused on, but we've kind of put that stuff on hold. Our only water sources for coffee or washing our dishes is the small bathroom sink next to the toilet, which obviously includes hygienic issues. The evidence room is so full that there are times when Laura will have to remove boxes from the floor just so she can access evidence in the evidence room. We have no room for any substantial evidence if we were to get a major case or a case that required more evidence to be retained. We did put a ventilation fan in recently as one of the stop gaps to help with odors or fumes, but that can only do so much, being that it's right there in their squad room and there's still gaps around the door. Last one is the limited storage space. Due to overwhelming amounts of equipment, duty gear, their bulletproof vests, duty bags, training notebooks, and other equipment, we did decommission one of the jail cells for storage. But this was found to not be a viable option because we weren't able to keep combustible items in the jail cells per the fire inspection. And also those items were permeating the must and mold odor that comes from the jail area. So lots of different issues. My main concern is having 8 out of 10 employees reported breathing concerns, allergies, headaches, and migraines that only come on when in the building for extended amounts of time during their shift. 2 of those employees spend the majority of their time in the police department to conduct their essential job function.
And there's one other thing that I want to add that's not directly on that list. And that's that things are so close and where everybody has to work and they have very small workplaces, is that in the past, we've had police officers processing drug evidence, biological evidence in the same place they do their paperwork and eat their lunch. It's on the same 30 by 40 square foot or square inch workspace. We've modified that so that there's actually a separate table that they can turn around and go to. It's still in the middle of the squad. And the evidence room has, well, I mean, you know, some of the cases that have happened, you know, over the years here, that evidence is in there. It's to be kept for 100 years. We make no effort whatsoever to address the error. So, I mean, we're not going to be able to, paper or those kind of things is not going to, we're not going to be able to meet that criteria. But also whatever is in there is able to just go ahead and come in to the squadron. Now, where does it go from there? It can come, you know, right now, HRAP is connected to the police department because we had some problems in HRAP. So those are actually connected, so they can be coming into this space too. But the idea that we have those kind of contaminants, and we're saying, you know, okay, well, fine, that's we can't do anything about it. We have put negative air pressure in the evidence room, so that will do some good. But we still have the issues of trying to, you know, do the work, the biological and the drug processing, those kind of things in that air that everybody breathes. And locker room, bathroom, tiny for the number of people that you got. What they call the kitchen is in a hallway that's just this long and about this wide. That's right by the bathroom. So if somebody opens the door in the bathroom and you're there microwaving your food, that's what you get. So that's why there are things that need to be done. I think that if we're not going to move forward with police station, it would be a more comprehensive project. I think there are some things that we can do short term that are going to help some. But before I got here, they tried to do a project which would have made modifications to where my office is, Jen's office is, and the server room, and where Karen is. And the prices came in the day of a meeting, and they came in at $300,000 for that. And it was just moving some walls. And some of it was based on the conditions of this building again. In the foundation, sawdust and some kind of oils is what was found. And so based on the cost then, based on the cost of a wood building at Matanuska, which is over $300,000, and the issues that we have to deal with, and the fact that we're going to be dealing with bearing walls, the architect said, when we talked to David Veneta, in his opinion, it could not be done for less than $500,000. I think the number is going to be more, the budget number we're going to use is $700,000, but I think it'll be close, it'll probably be in the $750,000 range, just because of all the things that have to be done.
And that's all for temporary.
Yes, sir, it's all temporary. And because at some point, we're gonna have to build a station. We're gonna have to build a city hall. And so that price goes up $750,000 a year, 500 to 750. I think it's much closer to 750 now. So it's going to get more expensive and just harder to do. But none of those costs, it's not like we're buying desks that we can move someplace else. It's going to be kind of moving some of the built-ins and things that we have, but I would count on almost $0 as being recoverable to a new building.
If we did, as Brandon suggested, completely rebuild the police station here on this site without worrying about City Hall, how do we pay for it?
You would still need to get a loan. And so it would be in a referral where people would tax themselves.
Bond
or
measure then?
a bond measure. But more importantly is that you would be building a new police station in the tsunami zone.
Right.
Ashley?
Hi, because we're back to this topic, I wanted to jump in. Councilor McCarthy, you asked a question about how compression under Measure 5 or how this debt.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear.
Ashley, same problem as last time. Yes, if we can see, yeah, we gotta be able to see your whole face.
How about now?
Better.
Better.
Okay. Councilor McCarthy asked about how this would be impacted by Measure 5. These sort of bonds for construction debt are not subject to Measure 5 compression.
Okay.
So I just wanted to verify that before I spoke, and I wanted to jump in before too much time went by.
Good. Thank you. That was my concern.
Whatever we wind up considering for a future City Hall total project, that's not happening anytime soon. The conditions of the building they're in now is deplorable and needs remedy as soon as possible. I would, rather than a total rebuilding of the spaces that are available, I would look more into portables that could be parked in the parking lots, just like you do for a normal construction site kind of office thing.
Like temporary school.
Like a temporary school building or the offices, and then focus the internal spaces of the building for the storage rather than the external for the storage, and trying to make the internal functional better. I think there would be some cost differences there. I don't know. I'd have to have that penciled out before I made any sort of commitment, but then you'd have much more capability. The garage that we have next to Jeff's office, which is portable technically, that could then be served better while the current offices are being remodeled to some better extent. If they actually are even remodelable at all, I don't, again, not knowing what's above scares me. But then the portable facility, if it's when we do start building, wherever we wind up building somewhere else, that could then be part of that project somehow, so that the transitioning could happen. I think that there needs to be some better planning in how we can incorporate right away, as soon as possible, better conditions for the staff. That sounds like, to me, the quickest and easiest. There's a place in Portland that has construction trailers. I was looking at one here. It's 10 by 32. It has a handicapped restroom and 2 offices. in a central area for sales kind of thing. So they're available. I don't know what kind of security we would need for some of that. If the trailer can be secured well enough, we'd have to look into that. The other idea that I thought of was just the fact that we could drop a container and have a storage unit, in a week if we needed it. I don't like the looks of those. We have to commit to the fact that they are transition only and not going to stay forever like Jeff's office. That's another part of the whole building that I think is deplorable. So that's just some of my thoughts.
One of the things about the portable units, and I've installed them on this project, is you can lease them. And when you're finished and you no longer need it, you come to haul it away. So it's not totally a sunk cost. And it's not one where you're doing sticks and mortar that you just end up tearing down when you leave it. So, and they can be outfitted, I think, like
Workforce housing.
said, you have restaurant facilities, separate kitchen facilities. You can use a double wide and really make pretty decent office space for the police. We have got to do something for the police or we'll have none left.
Right.
Jason, are there any particular, I mean, I'm not talking about building code standards, but are there any police standards that need to be followed when it comes to a building, like a certain space for jail facilities or evidence storage or anything that need to be considered when you have a police department?
Sure. No, there's certain things where you have to have ventilation for certain areas. I mean, we're not living to a lot of those at this point. But yeah, you have to have certain security measures in place for holding records and keeping them from catching fire. We have the fire door that goes over the records that we have now, but there's a lot of different requirements for that, but also for having the off-site record keeping as well.
So if you had portables as were being discussed, would you be able to meet those kinds of standards, do you think, in a portable? I know you don't.
We'd certainly have to look into it and
Yeah.
find out what how long it would be and what the requirement would be.
Well, you could still use the holding cells as holding cells, which would free up some room that way. And containers, I think, could be outfitted for storage, again, as a temporary measure. It seems to me like it's a better way to go than remodeling. Really, yeah, what do they say? Can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. And that's, we don't even have them. We just got a pig, that's all.
That was going to be my suggestion as well about the portables. So I lend my support behind that idea.
And if we moved it higher up on the property, that might be a better idea too.
But we'd probably put it up where the gravel parking lot is.
I think we will look at it. I'm a little concerned that unless we can find a space that's going to be a size that the whole operation can be included, I'm not sure about a police station that you go from building to building. And also, I would be very wary of the security capabilities of a structure like that.
Those buildings can be made to be as secure as they need to be. There's nothing that can't be built onto those structures that would function just as well as anything stick built.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I was thinking of it, after we talked, or while we talked, if you just had one of these office things, you'd basically have two offices and the front desk in the portable, and then everything else you need would still be in the current space until we got space in the garage fixed up better. And then when that, you could move that into there and then you fix up this space. So you have, you know, kind of a domino effect that you have to get going. But once you know, and that still gives you the security for the records and the more sensitive stuff in this building. While as the offices and the staff are more comfortable in a air conditioned.
Yes.
What about locker rooms and restrooms? Would you be able to accommodate what is needed for those,
The restroom
that space?
was there was a handicap restroom in one of the container portables that I saw.
But you probably need multiple facilities, wouldn't you? I mean, a locker room is only right now is only for 12 spaces,
Yeah.
26.
And those are, I mean, that type of stuff we can find a workaround for. The bigger concerns are just like the CJIS security, where we can only police people or people that have been cleared can have access to certain things, whether it's the computers and that type of thing. And like Brandon was talking about, most of those buildings, in all honesty, are more secure than ours is now.
And when we put in, you had restrooms for boys and girls, so it's certainly not an issue either.
Okay.
That still brings us around. This is kind of a circular conversation. It brings us back around to Bruce's original question is how far forward do we want to move on the an encapsulated city hall project?
I think we want to continue. I think we want to continue the discussion. We don't want to put it off, you know, and we should, I don't know, maybe set ourselves a deadline for making a decision immediately, you know. We need to get I think we need to get the location, and we need to get a design of some kind for the location, even though it's a rough design. But we need to keep working on it, and we really need to seriously think about a November or a May election, I think.
Certainly, if we said a May, that's a year. We've got to fiddle far around. You know we have a need. There's an agreement, unanimous agreement. We need a city hall and a police department. We have, I think, some very complete, I'd say, comprehensive studies on our needs by department and square footage. We know the size. We know what the cost was a year and a half ago. Maybe it's been 2 years now. I've lost track. So we could actually put a good number together as to what we would need to go out for a bond issue. While we finalize the design and location, the cost is the land is our land. So we don't have to worry about the real estate value of land. We have to worry about the cost of inflation and the construction costs to build. We know what our size requirements are. We'll fine tune it, take a look. We may have some changes in the last year. We know what the cost is going to be, even in current dollars, or let's say forecast dollars. Putting off a decision to go out with a bond issue, which is the only way to do it, we may end up paying that bond off by using food and beverage tax, as well as property taxes. But we need to say, we're going to go out this date, go out for this amount. So we fine tune the design, and in fine tuning the design, so we need to look at the sites. And I still would like to have the same look at the Spruce Street site that we've given to the others before we just discount it entirely. And then the decision will be on is it going to be worth $200,000 of lost revenue every year to be at the RV park versus building a park-like setting in the Spruce open space. Any one of the sites would have require zoning changes. South Winning requires going through the urban growth boundary change. So sooner we get started, the sooner we commit, we're gonna do this, and I think there's consensus, we're gonna do it. Why keep putting it off, putting it off, putting it off, because we don't have all the details? We have a good handle on what the ultimate bond issue would be. We don't even have to firm that up until much further down the road. So set a date. If you're not comfortable with November, say we'll do the May and get on it and get the site evaluation of Spruce Street. Take a new look at the facility requirements. Just assure ourselves that we're comfortable with those numbers, or we make some adjustments in it based on what we now know. And get an architect. Start going. If you want to wait until you know how everybody's going to feel about it, well, nobody wants to raise their taxes. We know that. They're all going to have opinions, not in my backyard. So we know that. It's up to the council, staff to say, we're going to build a new city hall and a new police department. We have really two viable sites, one which we haven't really studied yet. And it may not be viable once we do. And that ought to certainly include a tree survey. We went ahead and did that and did the same kind of architectural rendering of that site. Then we've got square footage, we've got programs, refers to it as what our relationships are between departments. And we have a ballpark figure on the cost, so we can begin to think about what this is going to mean in the way of going out for a bond issue referendum. And those, you do it sequentially, we may eventually get there. These are things that are. Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
And, first of all, from the bond referendum question, I think it can be decided much more quickly. I don't think that going to May will give you that much of a better answer. What we have a good feel for is that you can go out for it, or first of all, within a month, numbers we got by a professional cost estimator, and they will be able to say, this is what, instead of, trying to do any other kind of guesses. So we can get those numbers updated. If one of the considerations is to have a floor plan, I would say, then let's go ahead and hire the architect, because it's unlikely when you hire an architect, they'll go ahead and say, well, I'll build that plan for you. So, and I think that we need somebody to spend the time that an architect will do, give you that information. I don't think we need that. I think we got enough for the program to determine the cost, those kind of things. So I don't know what the floor plan would necessarily, would change your mind with it. But I think the key thing here is that you have two ways to fund this that we're aware of right now. One is to go out for a referral for people to approve a bond to pay for it on their real estate taxes. That's one. The other, which I wouldn't necessarily give up on yet, is that a 2% increase, a 2% food and beverage tax would pay the note of about $600,000 to $700,000 a year, would pay the debt service, and nobody, including the restaurants, would have to have an increase in their taxes. And although we're reluctant to go ahead and put that in place, but I don't think some people have thought it through all the way, that if I'm the restaurant owner, I don't want a food and beverage tax. So a bond deal is approved. So now I didn't have to pay anything before, it was a pass-through. Now I'm paying the taxes on that property. And that's something I think that the food and beverage tax can avoid. And that was something that I was hoping to avoid, to get it down to, we can pay for it this way. And I think that the fire department has made a good case for what they want to do and they don't have the ability to raise the fund. So I think we'd be looking at maybe a 4%. So I think those are your two choices. If you can handle a referral for food and beverage, then that keeps us on schedule for what the fire department asked for, or you can go for the bond.
Okay, so walk me through the food and beverage tax. How much does the city hall, how much do you expect the city hall would cost?
$600,000 to $700,000 a year
Okay. And if,
for the debt service.
okay, 600,000 to 700,000 a year. And the food and beverage tax would raise how much for the city itself, not for the fire department, for the city?
The number that we received from the company that was, that we partnered with the fire department was, I think it was 430,000 a year for every 1%. Now, I think it's gonna be, my guess is it'd probably be less than that, but as long as it's 600,000 to 700,000, we're good.
Okay, so
But-
400,000 for the city alone, not for the
No,
fire department?
800. If we
800,
did 2%, it would be 800.
okay.
And actually, if it's their numbers are, I'm sorry, they play out, it might be as much as 860. I'm not counting on it. But
That's just
that's
for the city, that's not for the fire department?
right. And then there would be another 860 potentially, and I think it's high,
Okay,
for the fire department. So that's, plenty of funding. I think that Mark was looking for 800. And so it may be a little bit less. We've not taken the next step from what they provided us, and we can have the people that did that survey on the phone, but it was a very exhaustive, double check, triple check against this, check again, all these other.
okay, so if we raised the the food and beverage tax by 2%, the city would get about $850,000.
Something
And-
like that.
And the debt service for the city hall / police station, you're estimating at about 600,000 to 700,000.
It would pay it.
So we could pay that with the food and beverage tax. So what
Yes.
you're asking is possibly, could we refer the food and beverage tax on the November ballot to pay for the debt service on the new city hall and police station? And that would not require increase in property taxes.
Yes, that's correct. And the benefit, when you're talking about trying to get moving on it, the big decision is how you can pay for it. If you're not asking people to pay, and it's going to be on the concept of nobody's paying additional taxes. It's a pass-through, 2% for the fire department to go ahead and improve their capabilities, 2% for us to go ahead and build the city hall and police station emergency operations center, and there's no increase in the taxes, then that's one thing that you can put out.
Now, we could also, and I'm not suggesting this,
Mhm.
but there is a possibility that we could increase the food, or we could establish a food and beverage tax without having to go to voters, right?
Ashley's nodding her head, yes.
It's not required to refer a food and beverage tax to the voters. Almost all the jurisdictions who have done it have chosen to.
Okay.
The real advantage is that, and I'm glad you brought these numbers up, is the city, the people's taxes don't go up, and that's where everybody just starts to have up there. And the education that makes the restaurant owners understand that it's not a tax that they're paying, it's just tax that they're collecting.
Right.
Just like the hotel owners, the lodging owners now, no different. The thing that I'm still concerned about on that is the risk. That is an economic risk of a serious downturn, another pandemic, because of some new variation of viruses that hold that down. And the other part of the risk is the restaurant owners fighting this
Mhm.
and taking it to court and all these things, and we've had, hints of that. So I think it's a great way to go, but it's it's certainly a benefit to the property owners in this community. There is a risk associated with it, and that is an economic risk that I don't want to lose sight of. But
I don't think the risk is different if you do a real estate tax. If people are out of work, property values plummet, the assessment or whatever the tax is going to be, you're not going to collect enough money to pay the note.
I
So-
guess I've never seen property taxes.
No, I understand that. I understand that. And then also, when you talk about with what happened here recently, you know, with the pandemic, you know,
We did all right.
yeah, other than the restaurants, and it was only because of the requirements that they not be open inside. But, you know, other businesses seem to have done okay, and the hotels did great. But when you're talking about, you know, are the restaurants going to, you know, be concerned? I think that they need to understand that if they own the property, their real estate taxes will go up, and that's real money that they will pay. If they are renting, then their rent will go up, and that's a real number that they're going to have to pay. Plus, everybody else in the city will have to pay. Where on food and beverage, they don't have to pay. So, I mean, when you're talking about the hotels are kind of like, you know, they're doing good right now. Well, their taxes are going to go up in a huge number. If, you know, and if a real estate one is approved.
But there's one other thing for us too, and that is we've always felt that the people staying overnight are paying a tax to support the city.
Mhm.
Those that come here for the day or they're just passing through and eating in the restaurants are paying nothing for the benefits of this
Yes.
great community that they all come here to see. It's so quaint, they love it. And it's like going to Disneyland for free.
Yeah.
So that would compensate.
It would. And also, I mean, I look at it a little bit more as far as you've got people that are coming here and taking advantage of it for free. Understood. But it's not free. What's happening is everybody else is paying for it. So it's the permanent population is paying so that other people can come here for free. So that would balance them.
Well, I mean, morally, I have no problem with it because the police department, the city hall provides the services to all of our visitors as well as our permanent residents.
Right.
There are more visitors, I include second homeowners in that. There are residents. So.
Right. And, you know, if we did look at a food and beverage tax, there'd have to be a lot of discussions. And I've heard a lot of arguments against, but I haven't heard any that, in my experience, ring true. I mean, where I came from, it was 8% sales tax on everything. And I didn't go someplace else to go ahead and avoid that. It was just the cost of living there. So, yeah.
Question, I'm not promoting one way or the other. I'm actually very curious about how this works. There's nothing that would preclude us from doing a lesser amount in the food and beverage tax and still doing some sort of bond for City Hall down the road.
I mean,
Let's say, let me just throw out an example. If rather than the 5.5%, we did a 4.5 and accumulated whatever we're going to get because we have no clue really. Professionals tell us it's pretty good, but we don't know. Let's say we get more, we get less, but we're going to let it accumulate for a while to start going. Then we decide to go forward with the City Hall and we find out it's a little more expensive than we expected. Can we then make the difference up with a bond?
probably, but at an increase of $750,000 a year, if you do it 2 years, it's going to be $1.5 million more. So I can.
I'm not extending the time of when we decide to do school. I'm just saying, or the school, the City Hall. I'm just saying that rather than doing such a chunk of a food and beverage tax initially,
Mhm.
if we do a little bit lesser, and then call for a bond after that, and then we know a firmer number.
Sam, I think that's possible. From a strategy standpoint, if 4% will do it, I would ask for 4% as opposed to 3%. Plus, I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. And if it is, we'll go ahead and raise your taxes. But again, people will only pay that when they go to the restaurant. Brandon, were you saying something?
No, I was actually going to bring up that same point, but with a little bit different aspect to it than what Sam just recommended, is that you could do both at the same time. And it's something, it does provide a third option rather than just the two that you've laid out. You could structure it in a way that the food and beverage tax was a little bit lower and that we would refer a bond measure less than what you had initially proposed.
Yeah, I guess where I'm kind of concerned is if we throw out a 5.5 food and beverage tax in November.
Sam, it would.
Why do you keep saying
Be a four,
5.5?
be a
It's
four.
got written down here.
Oh, I didn't see that.
There was just something that I wrote.
No, it was something you said earlier about 5.5 increase in
Well, that's-
property
No,
tax.
that's how much it would increase their tax
Yeah,
on the real estate tax.
I was just looking at the number.
No, understood. No, but when the number that we were looking at to pay, what fire would like to see was 2%, and what the city needs is 2%. So I wouldn't see anything higher than 4.
Okay, well, I guess let me just state my concern is that I wouldn't want us adding too much on to what the fire department is requesting to lessen their chance of it passing. But I agree. I think that's just marketing it, getting it up, the message out there clearly, early enough, and hammering it in so that everybody understands it when it comes time to vote.
Yeah. Let's use your example. If we were to reduce it to improve what would go for the fire department, then to make up the difference, we are taxing our residents to pay for the fire department. We're going to increase their real estate tax for that.
And that to me is part of the marketing problem.
Yeah.
Because a city hall for Cannon Beach is for the residents. Whereas the emergency aspect of the fire department, the way Mark has been presenting it is clearly for the visitors. 70% more for the visitors than for us. And I would say that I would sell this more in a sense that all emergency management, all of Rick's budget, all of this stuff that we would add on to a city hall specific to emergency management, those little extras that we could then clarify as being also kind of for the visitors. That way the visitors are a little more comfortable with paying 4%.
oh, they're not even gonna look at it.
Yeah.
But again, this whole thing, this is another little bit of a concern. When we do a food and beverage tax, it will be going into the general fund. We will then allocate a certain amount to the fire department. Because it's our tax, it's not their tax. So that's a concern that I want to make sure that we have some real strength in the fact that what we allocate to the fire department stays to always goes to the fire department.
And we can do that within their local or something like that. But when we're talking about Mark is saying that 70% of his expense is spent on tourists. The funds that he's talking about bringing in will benefit everybody. So if he's buying a new engine, it benefits everybody, but that allows him to have the money to do that. So it's not that it would just be spent on calls. It would improve the situation for everybody in terms of rescue, all those sorts of things.
No, I don't think they have a problem with their argument. I think that is just the rock solid. My concerns only lie in the fact that food and beverage tax allowability and whether we can get it. I don't think I have any problem with the citizens of Cannon Beach passing that or the fire department.
The city didn't pass it.
That's the residents of the city. Because it's going to a referendum. If we don't take the referendum.
No, you could impose this.
Yeah, I know.
Whatever time Ashley says it takes for us to advertise and all those things. But my experience with referendum, first of all, I wouldn't separate them. I think that people are naturally going to be more likely to approve something for the fire department and say, well, I'll split the baby with this. And remembering that we're the ones that are making that possible. And our stuff is all about emergency operations also, but it's less sexy than a fire truck coming to my house if it burns. So I would tie them together, at least in the first effort, and then say it's 4%. All these things will happen, if you do that, and we won't have to raise your taxes.
Bruce, have you sent to us that information that you got about how much money this would provide?
Not that I had. No,
Well, you gave us a bottom line number. Is that
I thought I sent you the report. I'm sorry. I will get that to you. I thought
You gave us the bottom line, but you didn't give us the entire report.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
No, I will.
If it would be numbers you can show.
No, absolutely. I will get that to you. I intended to use that as the transmittal and attach the report. So that's what I thought I had done, but I had
So I
not.
think you said you were going to, but.
No, I'll get that to you. Yeah.
We're still gonna have our finance department try to reconcile a couple of us.
We met, we had that meeting.
Yeah.
And their methodology was, I think, more intense than what ours was. And also, we were trying to use averages based on what Orla said the total receipts were for all restaurants, what percent our restaurants were, what that might be, try to work backwards. These people will go into all kinds of records, to double check and cross check and all those kind of things. I'm sorry that I didn't get that to you, but I will. And we can also ask those guys to do a presentation to you.
I'd like that.
Yeah, then you can ask questions.
Well, and I like what Sam's saying, if we could say that everything that does come from the amount that we as a city receive goes towards emergency management. I think that would really convince everyone that it was for a good purpose. It still bothers me it goes into the general fund, but I don't know. We need to make sure that is fine tuned.
Before we do that, I just want to say that I went over Rick's budget today. And last year it was 300,000. This year we've held it to 300,000 plus a lot more, but it's all would be funded by grants. So that's almost 1%. And if we were to take 300,000 out of what would come in the 2%, we would still need other funds. So if we want to do that, we could balance by maybe reducing a little bit on what the fire department gets, or say it would be a higher percentage, 4.5% or something. But because of the things that we're doing, right now, he's at about 300,000. You don't expect him to be like that for more than 2 more years. It'll change a lot because a lot of things are happening at the cash sites. But I don't think we could just say, well, we'll absorb that and still be able to pay the note.
But all you're doing is just renaming it.
I'm sorry?
All you're doing is just renaming it. You're not absorbing it. I mean, if Rick's budget is 300,000 and we decide to take it out of the food and beverage tax rather than the general fund, it's all going into the general fund anyhow. So all we are is just saying, just changing the name. So that we eventually would have the 300,000 that we would normally get Rick's budget available for other stuff, because now we're giving it from this stuff. So it's.
But now you wouldn't, I'm just saying that you wouldn't have enough if you took, suppose we got $800,000 if we were to say, okay, we'll put $300,000 in emergency management, we don't have enough to pay the note. And so it would have to come from other sources.
Yeah, but I think what Robin is saying is if we use them, and if I'm wrong, let me know. But I think what she's saying is with the 4% food and beverage tax, the way we sell that, the way we explain it to people is, yes, it's going to City Hall.
Mhm.
Yes, it's going to the police department, but that's because, those departments will serve the emergency management responsibilities that we have. We still have the 300,000 that Rick will get elsewhere. We won't be putting that money into that emergency management fund.
Okay, I see. But when we,
Is that what you're?
It's more of a selling point.
Yeah.
The selling,
Have it,
not an
yeah.
actual, I mean, because we do, I mean, if you don't have a city hall that can provide the emergency management services, then you can't say you provide emergency management services, so you have to have a city hall to do that. So that's why we have a food and beverage tax, to get the city hall to provide the emergency management services when we need them.
And I'm talking police
It's always.
too. Yeah.
yeah, with that, and where I want to be careful on anything that we say in a referral. Suppose that $300,000, we were $300,000 short as a result of that. I think that we would need to say that we have already a dedicated funding source of 300, and we need another 300 that we would get, plus the 300 that would go for the other expenses.
Sure.
I'm just trying to make the math work in my head, but you're right. It's a zero sum.
I've lost track. You're talking,
I'll explain
you're
it to
still
you.
talking about it.
Later.
Write it out for me. In that example, maybe between the two of you, is there still a bond issue?
Hold
An
on.
example?
Yes, wait, hold on. Everything we're talking about requires a bond issue. Okay, the food and beverage would pay the bond issue. The real estate tax would pay the bond issue. But what would happen is if we went out for the referral, it's how we would structure and say, this is how the funds would be used. And if we're going to say that there's $300,000 that's going to go to emergency management, then we wouldn't have enough money. So we say, we already have a dedicated funding source we've identified for the city hall. For example, this year, and if Lori's watching, she'll probably have a heart attack, but we have the potential to put in like $700,000 into the reserve. We can say that we have got $300,000 from the reserve that we will use every time. But before, I'm going to go ahead and spoiler alert, that when we get to the budget meeting on May 4th or whatever it is, we've got a whole bunch of things that we need, potential loans to make us handle some things and all that. But potentially we were at a pretty good number, but we got so many things going on now, like with we don't have enough to pay 100% of the roof at at Cannon Beach Elementary. If we want to do anything design-wise, to be in a better position to get money from the federal government, then we need to start the design. So we're closer to saying that we are shovel ready. So some of those things. So we're talking about pulling some of that out, but it was a healthy number. But we just got a lot of balls in the air right now.
I'm going to go back to Mike's question. We wouldn't be, there's a good chance we would not necessarily, we wouldn't have to go to a bond measure if we can just go for the food and beverage tax. We wouldn't have to go for the bond measure.
I think,
Correct.
Go ahead.
Let me try this. My sense is there's a difference between a bond measure and a loan.
Okay.
And I think that my sense is that the food and beverage tax would help us pay off the loan.
Yeah.
A bond measure would be the voters telling us they have to pay off the loan through the property taxes. That's kind of the terminology.
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Yes.
So we go for the bond measure, and to pay off the bond measure, where you go to.
Actually, like,
Non-people want to know that you have money.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I think there is some confusion, what I think Bruce is saying is that we potentially get a revenue bond on the food and beverage tax to pay for the new facility. Is that what you're referring to, Bruce?
I don't know what I would call it. I would hope it would not be a revenue bond because usually those
Okay.
are a little higher.
Yeah, so we would either do a revenue bond or a full faith and credit bond. Neither of those need voter approval. The bond that needs voter approval is whenever you're raising property taxes. So I don't know if I'm 100% following, but I think that's a distinction we need to make.
Okay, so it's a revenue bond, not a property tax bond measure.
Yeah, that's what I keep running
Okay,
into.
revenue
when I talk to
bond,
folks,
I can
is all
understand.
they understand when you say bond is a property tax bond. We talk about it in different terms because there's the municipal bonds, there's the revenue bonds, there's all kinds of bonds.
This is a revenue bond we're talking about.
No.
Right, or as Bruce says, a full faith and credit, which is a
Full faith
a
and
loan
credit.
that can be paid off by any fund in the city.
Then we're not talking about a bond measure that raises people's property taxes.
No,
Right.
That's,
Think of it just being a city makes a law. or-
I mean, I understand revenue bonds. I just didn't hear that. I
We
didn't
don't-
hear that.
revenue bond would be something that would be easy to do like with the utility fund.
Mhm.
That we're gonna pay for it with the money we make on the utility. We're not really doing directly the same thing. And I think that the full faith and credit usually gets you a better rating and a lower rate. But what happens is like with anything else, it's like, well, if you stop doing this food and beverage, you're gonna have to go ahead and use taxes. So we would be signing on to that, but that's just part of the deal.
This is really important when we start trying to explain this to people.
Right.
Yeah,
We have to have all of our terminology
Mhm.
just right.
Ashley can help us with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can shout into my computer.
And again, not to push anybody on anything tonight, but that's what I'm saying. It's really, we don't have that much to decide on this revenue thing. It's one or the other. And then it's a matter of, getting everything that we need, together to go ahead and put it in. The benefit of that is if we were to get this money in November, then, I'm sorry, we wouldn't necessarily get the money, but we could draw against, collect a smaller amount and start design, which is what all of us were talking about. So to me, I think the two things that would have to happen.
We need to find a location.
I was gonna say, there's two things that I think have to be done in order to really get moving on the project, besides saying we're gonna do it. The first one is a location, because otherwise we're just gonna be having this conversation in November.
Flailing, yeah.
Right, and then the second thing is how are you gonna pay for it? And so I think our abilities to do the pay for it thing is with a revenue bond, or not a revenue bond, see what you made me do? A food and beverage, because we're helping the fire department. We got the other points that we're talking about making, and it doesn't increase anybody's taxes. So I think that, with a good effort, we will be able to go ahead and we have a good story. But with those things, we could do something, and then we hire an architect, and then we start seeing the designs and start working through the stuff. And, however we want to go through the process, but it is possible with those two decisions to get ready for November. We need to have more discussions with the fire department. We need to schedule the guy, Bob, to come in and talk about how he did the process. One of the things that the finance people suggested, and I love the idea, let's use Bob's methodology. Ashland, and work our way back and see if he comes up with the same number they get every year. But Ashland or Yahats would have to give us permission for the state to release all the information that we gave them permission to look in on for our effort. So anyway, I'm sorry, you were going to say something, Ashley? Oh, okay.
Bruce, you said get it ready for November. We don't need to go out to the public to vote on a,
Food and beverage tax.
they don't need to vote on a food and beverage tax. And they don't need to vote on the city taking out a loan. So if we're not going out with a bond measure that raises property taxes, then where does November fit into that conversation?
Referendum for the food and beverage tax is a more secure, or gives us confirmation that everybody's behind it. We don't have to, but Ashland did, and I don't know. They both
Okay.
did.
Doing it, just,
Yeah,
Yeah, let folks know what we're doing and is this okay?
okay. It's not a requirement, that's.
not a requirement, no.
But it's an act of faith to ask.
And
Well, it gives you a chance to explain
Yeah.
what this
Yeah.
benefit
Yeah.
is to everyone.
And I agree with Rob. I mean, it's like, we're doing this on your behalf, you guys good. So I think that's a smart thing to do. And again, we have a good story to tell. We're not gonna put it in an airport someplace or something like that, that people are gonna scream at.
can you work up during this discussion, the timing aspect backwards, when do we have to have it all in and out? Just like a regular bond? I don't know.
Yeah. The date we will work back from is August 13th. That's when we have to have stuff to Astoria.
Okay.
And remember there's things, and Ashley will help us with this, and the advisor will help us with this. But the other part is if you provide direction for us to go ahead and provide you information on, plus cons, pros and cons for the different sites, we can give you that, so you can potentially start that discussion.
Right.
I would like to see that, and I think we're starting to get a plan.
And I'd still like to see the pros and cons on the Spruce Street side.
Well, we'll include that when we're talking about sites. At your direction.
I'm not saying I would vote for it,
Right.
but I mean, it's out there. We might as well look at it.
Yes.
Okay, so we have meetings for the food and beverage tax coming up. Then you want to Econ Northwest, not Econ Northwest's process. We'll get some information from those folks. We'll figure out our timeline. That'll be our next discussion on that specific. Do you have any ideas of when and how we want to discuss City Hall?
The sites.
Yeah. sites.
Yes. We could probably have that report done in 3 weeks, possibly less. We will do everything we can to get Bob in front of you folks as soon as possible. I will forward the report tonight and then try to get Bob we're up to 7 or 8 items on the 20th. And so maybe if we want to talk, having another meeting or go ahead and put Bob on the 20th, however you want to do it. But I think that you need to get some confidence in what the numbers are and to understand how he did it. I do not understand how he did it. But we can go ahead and get that. So if you want to have a separate meeting, we can do it that way.
I'm okay with an additional meeting just to keep this moving.
Yeah.
Okay?
Don't forget, we've got budget stuff coming up.
Yeah. When is the first budget committee meeting?
4th?
For,
I think it's the 4th.
I'm looking to make sure. I think it sounds about right.
Yeah, because that was one I was trying to back up from the 4th to when we have to have everything done at the staff level. So I think it was the 4th.
It's the 5th at 1 o'clock. So it's
Okay.
the first Wednesday. So we have them scheduled the first Wednesday, second and third Wednesday.
Okay.
And if we get them done in 2 meetings, we don't-
Clock at
1 o'clock.
That's food and beverage, we got. Third topic and last topic tonight is chief is still sitting in a moldy office. Can we act on something on that to get that alleviated as soon as possible?
yes, I think it's really imperative.
I think that we will. I'm not comfortable I'm gonna have a lot of people mad at me tomorrow, but I'm not comfortable putting the police department into portables. But I wouldn't have a problem moving the police into the other part of City Hall and then moving City Hall into portables. So I want to take a look at both options, meaning that the city staff would be in portables either out here or out back. And then police would move into our offices to this part of the building.
Another way to work it. I guess what I'm heading is not parking portables tomorrow, but I'm talking about a plan.
Yes, yes, we will look at a plan.
Okay.
I'm just saying that between who we inconvenience and who we move and who we put outside, I'm not sure if staff, and that's why I'm afraid to come into the office tomorrow, but I'm not sure that that wouldn't be a less problem.
Just give them this, and we'll see them.
If we do that project and we don't put people in portables, police does get this for 6 months.
Yeah.
We
I'm talking about this room.
Mhm.
we didn't actually talk about the original concept of building another garage, but rebuilding the garage.
Yeah, I don't.
That's out there, the separate garage, not this garage.
We might not have to, because there's two. Well, we'll look at what we have to do.
I guess the only way I could see that working beneficially, it's a slower process to build a second garage, not that much slower than hiking in a trailer. A little bit slower, but that could empty out this garage. So this garage could be, the internal garage be remodeled quicker.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure one way or another, we're gonna have to put Jeff inside of a container or something like that with his
And then
with the modular, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna give up the modular easy. But we'll look at all those kind of things. We've not thought about it from that standpoint, so let us bring you something in a couple weeks.
Would Veneta be doing that?
Probably not. We would probably gather information on what modular sizes, things like that were available. And then talking about how we would separate, who would go in what. We put, get a bigger one or get two smaller ones or whatever. I don't think we would need to have the NADA involved with that. Who's going to be totally involved is this guy.
They're not doing anything anyway.
He's not doing anything anyway. That's right.
Check out Design Space Modular Buildings. I'll send you a link to it.
Okay.
It's a Portland
Rusty.
facility. I just ran into it. It's very clear because it gives you floor plan. 3 topics right now. Okay, anybody got anything good of the order?
Coffee with the counselors next Monday morning at 10 a.m. We might be discussing this issue.
I guess.
Maybe we'll even have some city people calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have some city staff and then
Yeah.
everybody is welcome to join us.
I call.
Good coffee, good coffee.
Yeah.
I have something. Tomorrow is, as I understand it, the deadline for submitting or presenting testimony for I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it, but being able to get money for the projects that we've submitted.
American Recovery Plan.
Yes, thank you very much, ARP. I would like to write a letter. I'm feeling a bit perhaps underinformed as to what I would put in the letter that would lend my support to it. And there was such a long list of projects that I was having trouble trying to prioritize.
Would you like staff to write a submittal and then you all sign it? So it's signed by the entire council?
I would be more than happy with that. I would also just be happy with some guidance,
Yeah.
write my own.
Well, and you can go ahead and take it from what we put together, but we'll put something together. And hopefully, you guys can sign it. But meantime, let me
I
see
don't
if there's
want to misspeak for the other counselors. I would like to do that, and if they would like to sign on to that as well, I think that would be
I
great.
like that. Yeah. That'd be fine with me.
okay. And I think that I also saw a schedule that if somebody wanted to speak, like 4 meetings set that, you could speak.
5:30 to 7:30 tomorrow.
Yeah, we're first.
It's by district, so ours is tomorrow.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So let us get going on that.
Yes, very good. Thanks, Brandon. That's something I was going to do also, and I was going to try and listen. It's pretty complicated to get on there. The little bit of concern that I heard, I don't know if anybody else heard Betsy on the KMUN Monday morning. She has her half hour that she likes to rant. She was ranting pretty negatively about this whole process.
Oh, great.
So just because it's too much work and there's like 1,100 applications and they're gonna have to sort through them and all that kind of stuff. There was some positive in there because they're gonna have to start culling, and what they were looking for was shovel ready. Degrees of shovel ready, and since we got a couple that are already half done, I think that sounded positive. So if you're sending anything, you might also CC it to Betsy, just to give her a bit of a shout.
We did that with our original submittal.
Good. The other thing I wanted to bring up, different topic. I can find it, hang on. Alicia. I sent this to Bruce. The North Coast Tourism is promoting a climate emergency program that they want to put into their, it's complex. I thought everybody would have gotten this email. Maybe
I did. I received it.
Okay. It's from Arica, R-I-C-A Sears. So look at that, and I was hoping that we could also do that as a supportive process. I was probably going to sign that just on my own as the mayor, but I would rather have the whole council do it.
And say that again.
A-R-I-C-A, Arica Sears, and she sent it on Friday.
Oh, okay.
So read through that and let me know what you feel, or let Bruce know. 'Cause I thought we were pretty positive about that. Okay, anything else? Anybody else? Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Do we have a barrel,